Yep. Up. Good girl. Sit. Sit down. Good. Hello everyone and a very warm welcome. Nick Jones here again, and today we're looking at the simple yet highly effective device called the Kong. Now this is a Kong Classic, it's a medium in size, and I will show you two simple ways in which you can fill it. Now you can either fill it with a dried food, which to do that you'll need to cover it with hot water and make up a nice mash, or you can fill it with a wet food. I feed both of my dogs a wet food, happens to be fourth grade, and that food can be perfectly stuffed into here. So without any further ado, let's jump into the physical filling of the Kong, and then I'll give you some shots of both of the dogs working on it. You like it already, don't you? And it's empty. Hey, don't you? You like it already. Okay, off. So here we have the classic Kong. This is a medium-sized Kong. It's called the Kong Classic. Also the red colour denotes a medium density. You'll probably be aware that with puppies these Kongs usually come in, say, like a pastel blue or pink, and they're much smaller, probably about this big, and that's ideal for young dogs with developing denture, and also senior dogs it can be useful for. But this is the Kong that most of you will probably refer to. You can see in the size of my hand, that's 8 inches, so that's about 4 plus inches there. Now this is a hollow device that is absolutely ideal for stuffing and then giving your dog to keep it busy for a period of time. Now generally there's two ways in which we can fill a Kong. If you're feeding your dog a wet food of sorts, as we do, we feed our dogs fourth grade, then that can be opened up and put inside the Kong and then given to the dog. Absolutely perfect. The other way to feed your dog through the Kong is actually you can use dried food. Now in its dried state it will of course fall out, so that's no good. So what I propose we'll do is I'll just quickly demonstrate to you the two different ways in which you can fill it. I will start with the dry food method first, because we can then set that aside and let it soak with hot water, which is the idea, and then whilst that's soaking we'll come back to it later, and then we'll feed the wet food to begin with. But to get that ball rolling, let's start with putting these bits to one side. And what I have here is a really simple recipe. Now your absolute basic Kong would be filled with the soaked food here. But I happen to know that both of my dogs enjoy carrot, and a good way to make this really available digestively to your dog is to grate it into the mixture. Now if you wanted to add, off the top of my head, other vegetables and maybe some fruits as well that you know your dog likes, then that's okay. So things like the root of broccoli, just a bit of that, or maybe some little cubes of chicken. Any sort of healthy, meaty, nothing too fatty. I only mention fat because some dogs can find it a bit difficult to digest if it's too fatty. Fat in itself is not bad. So what you put in the Kong really is up to you, and based on you knowing what your dog does and doesn't like, which I encourage you to take into consideration. Just be careful you're not putting too much in the Kong and making it too rich and then upsetting your dog's digestive system. So keep it simple essentially, which is exactly what I've done here. So to begin with, what we shall do here is to put some of the food. I won't do all of this because of course dried food will expand somewhat. So he said virtually all of that fell out. Let's put some of that back in, because I don't want to do too much. I would expect this to expand by at least half. Okay, just cover it in boiling water to the halfway, just so it covers it. So the hot water I'm about to pour on it has been off the boil for a good 10 plus minutes. So we'll just put that on there. Now you can either leave that for a minimum of an hour or so, or you can actually leave it overnight, and you'll be surprised at how much of that water that will soak up. And then once it's full, we can grate in, once it's absorbed the water, we can grate in the carrot. So I'm going to do a bit of a Blue Peter here and basically just sort of bring things forward a little by grating this carrot in now. Not all of it. I know you ladies are all thinking about your nails. I don't need to worry. So just get your hands in there, mix that around. And also that carrot will add some nice sweetness for the dog. They'll love that. Okay, so I'm not going to add too much water. Just be careful because it's a bit difficult to take the water out. So just if necessary, you can add a bit of water later on. So we'll let that soak and then we will put that in the Kong later on. So let's look at stuffing the Kong with wet food. Now, this is essentially simplicity itself. Now, depending on whether you're giving your dog's meal, so I know if, for example, this was one of Ruby's meals, I would put half of this pack in there. And what I'm going to do is to just fast forward and you will see then half of this pack in the Kong. So you shouldn't play with your food, of course, but I just wanted to demonstrate that this Kong holds, let's say, about a quarter of a pack. Okay, and leaving some smeary bits around the outside is absolutely fine. What you can do if your dog is not entirely sure to begin with on these, both of mine would just jump straight into that, is that you could push it in more and then maybe put a little seal of something like cream cheese on the top, just a teaspoon, just to make it like a nice appetizer, if you like. Now, should you find that your dog is completely mad for working on the Kong in this way, and if they empty the Kong very quickly, what I would then do is place this in a freezer-proof Ziploc bag and then freeze it, and you can then present it to the dog frozen, and that's for advanced Kongers, as I say, and then that can probably double it from say 15 minutes to 30. It just depends on your dog. Some people will laugh and say, oh yeah, my dog will empty this in 5 minutes. That's fine, but so you can just make it more and more difficult. Again, if you have a single dog, the advantage is that there's nothing stopping you feeding all of its daily food allowance through. Well, you can see here this would take 4 full Kongs to give Ruby her full daily allowance, which is what she has, one of these a day. So just you know, well worth thinking about, because if I gave this to Ruby half a pack per meal she has roughly, she would actually down that within 1 to 2 minutes, whereas if I present it in here 4 of these, then I would imagine that's going to take probably up to an hour if they were fresh or frozen. It's not something I've done before because I've got the 2 and they just eat straight out of their bowl, but that's all well worth thinking about. And that hour of time used could be for you, so there's nothing stopping you presenting a stuffed Kong when, for example, you're about to go on a conference call, or you're about to sit down for dinner, or you want to make your own dinner. Okay, there's no problem with that at all. As long as your dog isn't encroaching upon you whilst you're eating or preparing food, your dog can work upon one of these, no problem at all. Ruby, come. Good girl. So here is Ruby, full of vim and vigour. I'll just let her have this. Good girl. Good girl. Go on then. Yes. Give. Get that little face. What's that face? You got moss on your nose. So we're back with the dried food, which has been soaking for nearly an hour, and this has got the carrot grated into it. So what we're going to do is start stuffing this, and the best way frankly is just to get in there with your thumb and fingers and just push it in, and it could take a couple of minutes. Well, it does look pretty gross, doesn't it? But I can assure you this is just dog food with carrot and water, and your dog will love it. And in fact, again, there's quite a bit left there, and that can be put aside or chilled, and we could use that for another Kong. So I'll just clean my hands up, and then I'll show you some footage of Pip working on this Kong. So here we have one stuffed Kong with the soaked dried food along with carrot, so I'm pretty sure Pip will love this. Yeah. Sun's come out. Good job. Isn't that nice? So there you have it. Two different ways to fill the Kong and to keep your dogs busy during this extended period of being at home with your dogs. Enjoy it, whatever you do, and until the next video, thank you for watching.